This is Binghamton Now on News Radio 1290 WNBF Binghamton and WNBF.com.
I'm Bob Joseph. Today is Friday, October 18th, 2024. Let's do it live. The way we always do it. Binghamton Now. Give me a call at 607-772-1290. WNBF. Morning, WNBF. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
This is Paul from West Windsor.
All right. This is instant gratification. You just called in, and now you're talking to a potential audience of 8 billion people.
Okay, Bob. I'd like to apply the pleasure principle to Bob Joseph, Kamala, and President Trump. What gives them pleasure? I know what gives you pleasure.
Yeah. And what do you think gives Donald Trump pleasure?
Well, it's kind of like you. You love your community. You love to have conversations with people. And you like to keep it light, and you like to have a sense of humor with it. And I think you're a lot like President Trump.
I think he and I are very much alike.
I think you are. You love to talk to people and have conversations, and you like to solve problems, and you like to have people's input. So, but Kamala, I think she's fine. She's an everyday person, but she doesn't like to really talk to people or carry a conversation on. I think she doesn't really like to do like Trump does. So my point is that I think President Trump, because of his being so loquacious and talkative, and he likes to solve problems, he likes to work. This guy loves to work, and I think Kamala likes to work too. I don't think she has the pleasure of speaking to people and talking to them and having a conversation. I think that would be work to her, to have a conversation with people and try to answer questions. Trump enjoys answering questions. You do too. You're
I love the questions. I love the questions.
And your sense of humor is terrific. And people love to listen to you. And that's all I have to say.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great weekend. Be well.
You too.
It's 9:13 WNBF with Bob Joseph. What do you think? Does Kamala Harris like to answer questions? The more I look back on the 26-minute interview that was aired this week by Fox News Channel, the more I look back on it, it's clear she doesn't like to answer questions. At least she doesn't like to answer questions directly. I think that's probably one of the reasons the interview went the way it did. You know, she had a perfect opportunity. This was perhaps her one and only chance ever to speak directly with loyal viewers of the Fox News Channel. And she did, but if she was hoping to gain any votes in that environment, I don't think it worked. I'm not saying she gained 0 votes. She probably gained a couple of votes. But just judging the overall presentation as we saw it on Fox News Channel, I don't see where any minds were changed. If anybody had been on the fence, there's still maybe some people undecided, which is kind of hard to believe. 18 days before the election, but if you haven't made up your mind yet, well, what can I tell you? Maybe something will happen over the next couple of weeks that will help you decide. Now, if it's true, based on the reports that she showed up late for the interview, I find that problematic. I will give Brett Baer credit because he has acknowledged that the wrong clip was used at the one point, which he claims that the clip that he wanted used before he questioned Kamala Harris about what Donald Trump had said. He said that he wanted to use the clip from the interview with Maria Bartiromo. But whether it was really an accident or whatever, I don't know. Doubt it's an accident. You know, Bret Baier on Fox News Channel, he doesn't run things. Other people run things. You know, he's just, as they say, he's just the talent. And in the end, they will tell him what he needs to do. He certainly, during that presentation, he wasn't the person at the computer deciding which clips to play. So I'm not blaming Bret Baier, I'm blaming Fox News Channel, because mistakes were made. Apparently. I don't know if it was a real mistake, an intentional mistake. (9:17) News Radio, WNBF. It's 9:21 here at your favorite radio station. Watch out for fog. Another foggy morning. Dense fog in areas. It'll probably be the case for a while longer. Maybe some frost. Did you get more frost on your pumpkin? 9:21 WNBF. Let's go back to the phones. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Bob, I don't want to hog up, but anyway, I saw the Al Smith dinner last night.
I saw parts of it. I didn't see the whole thing. I saw some clips.
Well, I saw Kamala and I saw Trump, and it was funny. It was funny, I thought. I wonder if anybody else saw it and what they thought.
Yeah, good point. I'm gonna see if I can find some clips from our stack of stuff.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, thank you. Yeah, the Al Smith dinner. My invitation was lost in the mail. Oh, maybe next year. Well, invite me next year when there are no presidential candidates. Let's see. Well, I don't have any. I have lots of juicy items from Donald Trump, since he actually took the time to show up in New York City. We don't have much to go with from Kamala Harris, and she was campaigning in Wisconsin. Let's see. I'm going to try. I think we have some, maybe at least one clip. Okay, here's a clip. She sent a tape. Well, I'm sure it was a computer file. She sent video of something that they could play at the Big Al Smith dinner. So they were able to play something to, I guess, get people to laugh, even though she was in Wisconsin. So let's listen to this report from ABC's Andrew Dimbert.
Presidential candidates trying to show off their funny side.
Hey, what's going on? Who was that?
Oh, sorry, Mary Catherine.
I guess I just don't see the point of taking shots at myself when other people have been shooting at me for a hell of a long time, and they shoot right.
Former President Trump speaking at the Al Smith Memorial Foundation dinner, an annual Catholic fundraiser in Manhattan, historically providing moments of levity for candidates.
Really a pleasure. Anywhere in New York without a subpoena for my appearance.
All right. Well, you don't have to agree with him, but he certainly seemed to exhibit a certain level of self-deprecating humor. Here's another quick report, 29 seconds, from Andrew Dimbert with a little bit more from the fabulous Al Smith dinner.
Trump also criticizing Vice President Harris for not attending the fundraiser in person,
which is deeply disrespectful to the event and in particular to our great Catholic community.
Harris addressed the event in a video featuring Molly Shannon, portraying her Saturday Night Live character, Mary Catherine Gallagher.
Is there anything that you think that maybe I shouldn't bring up tonight?
Well, don't lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness to thy neighbor.
Indeed, especially thy neighbor's election results.
All right, well, I guess that was funny. Now, as far as not showing up at the dinner, it's a purely political calculation, which, with time running out in the campaign, is understandable. And that's the problem. She doesn't have much time left if she has any hope of winning. So she has to focus on the battleground states. Can we please be blunt here for a moment? If Kamala Harris showed up at the Al Smith dinner, that time, however much time she spent there, 2 or 3 hours, would translate into 0 additional votes. So given the fact the clock is ticking and time is running out, it's not going to go into overtime. The election will be held November 5th, whether or not the candidates are done with their campaigns. That's the one thing we know. We don't know how it's going to turn out. We don't know if people will accept the results. We certainly have every reason to believe half the people won't accept the results, no matter who they claim the winner to be. But bottom line is Kamala Harris, I think, made a correct political calculation that going to the Alfred E. Smith Memorial Foundation dinner in Manhattan wasn't going to be to her advantage. If anything, she might have lost votes. So, to be critical of her for not showing up, I'm guessing most of the people there, it's only a guess, probably don't even like her. So why would you go to a dinner just because they say it's a tradition that usually both presidential candidates show up at the dinner? Well, usually it's probably because they think they're going to gain some votes. There's no way. I say there's no way that she was going to gain any votes. So better for her to be far away in Wisconsin, where I suppose there was a hope that she could gain some ground. Of course, Donald Trump feigning surprise that his delightful opponent wasn't going to be at the dinner that he was attending last night.
I must say I was shocked when I heard that Kamala was skipping the Al Smith dinner. I'd really hoped that she would come because we can't get enough of hearing her beautiful laugh. She laughs like crazy.
9:28 News Radio, WNBF, Bob Joseph. It's Friday morning, 607-772-1290. So did you hear any of the clips from the Alfred E. Smith Memorial Foundation dinner? Or did you watch it on TV? Yeah, I didn't watch it on TV. I was working on a project. For WNBF.com. Oh, people, where did they get my email address? Oh, Alan from Binghamton. I can't read that on the air. Regarding Donald Trump, the only place he likes to work is on the golf course. Can't read the rest of it. Come on, Alan. Be nice. It's Friday. Let's be nice. It's important. Just be nice. Binghamton Now, the nice radio program on WNBF. Be sure to call the program, as I always say. The more, the merrier. Hi, WNBF. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Bob. This is Carol from Johnson City, and I'm calling about the Sarah Jane Johnson Church Craft Fair tomorrow from 10 until 2. Or actually, it's from 10 to 3. Boy, you answer the phone quick.
Instant gratification.
That's cool.
Thanks to the miracle of AI.
Well, we've got a lot of crafters.
That's the church on Main Street near Wilson Medical Center.
Yeah, right across from the post office.
Well, I just drove by. That about 8:49. That was me who waved.
Oh, okay.
And then I took a turn, not right there, but one block further east. I took a turn down to see what they were doing down the street, down near Lesgron's book outlet.
Oh, okay. What's going on down there?
Can't tell you yet, but you can keep an eye on WNBF.com if you know what I mean.
I hope they get the bridge on Lester Avenue done pretty quick.
You know, that's funny. I'll be doing a story about that today, too. I was just over there and taking pictures, and I'll have an interesting story on the website this afternoon because I was talking with Mayor Marty Maney about that Thursday afternoon. So we'll have an interesting story, an important update about the Lester Avenue Bridge because, well, I won't go any further, but it's funny. I was just over there. So were you watching me? I get the sense that you saw me drive by the church, and then I took a circuitous route down, what is that? Is it Broad? No, Arch Street or whatever. I don't know. And then I went down Corliss Avenue, and then I was on Lester Avenue. So it's almost as though you were following me.
Our surveillance team is out.
Yes, the Sarah Jane Johnson Memorial UMC surveillance team is keeping a watch on me.
Watch out for that, Bob.
Yeah, well, that's why BU put in all the plate readers. So every time that I go either on the campus in Vestal or near their buildings on Corliss Avenue or near the BU downtown center over on Washington Street, thanks to the plate readers, it lights up. It lights up over at BU, at the BU Command Center, so they know I'm doing a story about them.
Well, it's nice over around Johnson City now and that part of the
Yeah, they fixed it. It's beautiful. It's completely different than it was 6 or 7 years ago.
They got a nice park there that I can't remember who put it in. That's over by the pharmacy school.
Yeah, Jennison Park. And funny, and again, it's
Isn't
only
that beautiful.
Well, it's only yes, and I just noticed, and the mayor hadn't even mentioned this. I knew it was going to happen, but there's another thing. I just took a picture of the new sign they've installed at Jennison Park. So it's
Rotary Club. That's who.
Yeah. They did, and then the village also spruced it up too. So it looks, I mean, they did a big project over the last several months, and it turned out nice. So anyway, about the event tomorrow, what time does the event at the church run tomorrow?
It's 10 until 3, and we're going to have craft fair and bake sale, and at lunchtime, 11 to 1, we're going to have bake sale and chili dogs and good food, and be fun. It's going to be a nice day. The weather's going to be perfect, and we're looking forward to it.
All right. Thank you,
Thanks
Carol.
a lot.
Have a good day.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Bye. See? Instant gratification. But isn't it weird that most of the places she mentioned, I was just there in the last hour, less than an hour. It's okay. Maybe she has access to the plate readers too. Hey, everybody. Bob's on Main Street now. Now he's driving down Willow Street. No, now he's on Broad. Now he's on Corliss Avenue. Now he stopped in front of Jennison Park to take a picture of the new sign. Why is he going up on Lester Avenue? Tell him to stop. Tell him to get out of Johnson City. We don't want... Funny thing. I digress. Funny thing. I had a person a couple months ago, she said, we don't want a news story now. And it's like, I'll decide whether there's a news story. It's like, I'll do a news story about your organization when I see fit. You don't decide when there'll be a news story. I'll decide when there's a story that has to be reported. It's 9:38 WNBF. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Well, good morning to you, Bob. This is John from the Binghamton Community Booster Association.
Thank you. I was hoping that you would go over to the Booster Club. John from Binghamton, now a proud member of the Greater Binghamton Booster Club.
And we've done so much for the community, and this is a great community. And, you know, as Kamala Harris would say, a community is a community.
Stop. You're killing me here. You know, I gotta last for another 2 hours and 20 minutes before the weekend. Don't make me bust a gut laughing.
Okay. So the SWAT team comes out in the middle of the afternoon, and they get a menacing charge out of it.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, I know how it sounds or how it looks, and I'm a little conflicted. I know how it turned out because I was there from a few minutes after the police responded over to the east side, and yeah, the guy evidently, this isn't 100% confirmed, but it seemed like they were having some sort of a discussion about lawn mowing. Who would think in mid-October that a discussion involving lawn mowing could possibly go bad, but evidently it may have gone bad. And then the one person evidently went back inside the house and evidently he had a shotgun. So I don't know. I always think it's a tough decision what kind of resources to deploy to any scene. And I guess the way I look at it, again, as we see, the whole thing wound up being resolved, I think, after less than 45 minutes, which was a good thing, and nobody was hurt. And you're right, according to Chief Joseph Sikorsky, he told me that the guy who had the shotgun and apparently may have made some kind of threat would probably be charged with menacing. I don't know if that was the only charge. I haven't seen a news release yet. But, you know, what are you supposed to do, though? What if it turned out, maybe based on the history of stuff that happened at the place? So, I don't know. But I understand your point. They used a lot of resources, and they showed up in force and quite quickly. And it turns out, as I reported, you know, the guy was taken into custody not too long after the SWAT members got there. So,
how about this no-show dog catcher in Vestal?
I wasn't familiar with that. I have heard, and I won't offer a lot of specificity, I have heard in Broome County, when it comes to DCOs, dog control officers, there are the extremely dedicated, hardworking dog control officers or animal control officers, and then there are some who don't take their job very seriously. So I'm not familiar with what's going on in Vestal. Obviously, Vestal doesn't want a news story. As I pointed out a moment ago, there's some people who think just because they don't want a news story, they're not going to get one, but eventually they will.
Well, this woman has worked for the county in the area of I'll call it the humane area, and she is now working for Vestal, except she's not really working for Vestal because she's working as a pet groomer at a chain most of the week. If you have a matter, and she's paid, I think, $30,000 plus, and if you have a dog problem in Vestal, I guess you can meet with her 2 hours on a Wednesday if you have an appointment. But the town clerk appoints the dog control officer, and people in Vestal, they can't get a dog control officer when they need it. And I'm not talking about Christmas Day. I'm talking about.
Oh, hold on, just a second, John. WNBF, hi, this is Bob Joseph. You're on the air.
Hello, good morning. This is Dr. Amber Churchill.
Oh, Dr. Churchill, that was fast.
Yes, of course.
Hey, thanks. Hang on just a second, okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, all right, and I'll be right back with you.
Later.
What's that, John?
We'll talk about our furry friends at dog control at another day.
Yeah. Feel free to call back either later today or on Monday. Now, because this is a live local program serving the community for well over a decade, we're joined now by Dr. Amber Churchill, an assistant professor at Binghamton University. Good morning.
Good morning.
So I was driving yesterday, as I often do. I always take a different route into work because I'm fascinated by things I spot. And one of the things I spotted as I drove down Jensen Road yesterday morning, just about 25 hours ago, was a project that you recently started on a section, on the westernmost section of Nuthatch Hollow, the nature preserve owned by the university. And wasn't able to connect with you yesterday afternoon to do a little story about the project, but I'm glad we can speak now. We did put a short story on our website using some information that you had posted online, but I'm glad we have a chance to talk this morning about your lawn growing experiment, alternative lawns.
Yes, of course.
By the way, so you're a relatively newcomer to the Binghamton University community. How do you like things so far, living in the Vestal area?
Yes, I just joined the Binghamton University staff last fall, so I've been here just over a year, and I'm really loving my time here at Binghamton. I live in Vestal, and I'm originally from Maine, so it's really lovely being closer back east. I'm coming from the University of Minnesota, and it's a really lovely blend of being all the way in New England and a little bit in the Midwest, and so I've really enjoyed my time here in the southern tier.
So did you grow up in Maine?
That's right, yep.
So did you ever drink Moxie?
Yes, I did, but my friends and I referred to it as carbonated petroleum, so unfortunately I'm not of the bandwagon that Moxie is delicious.
Well, okay. We can agree to disagree. I, on the other hand, I've been to Lisbon Falls to the Moxie Fest, so...
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the second weekend of July, and they do have their fun, but as everybody who's ever had the pleasure or displeasure of sampling Moxie will tell you, it's at a minimum an acquired taste.
Yeah.
So there. Anyway, let's talk about what is going on, and after I posted the story, I got some feedback from people who said, yeah, I drive by there regularly or sometimes every day, and I wasn't sure what was going on. There is a sign on the fencing along Jensen Road, and I know neighbors were advised, people who lived nearby, I think received pamphlets or little background so they would know what was going on. Tell us about this project.
Absolutely. This project is the start of a series of experiments that we'll be running at Nuthatch that are focused on making relationships between biodiversity, so this is the number of species in a community, and the kinds of benefits that people can get from different kinds of ecosystems. So lawns being a really common kind of ecosystem that most people can visualize because a lot of people have their own lawns or at least see lawns in urban settings. So it's a really convenient system for us to ask some really great questions.
All right. And as the article at WNBF.com noted, there could be potential benefits for people and for the environment, depending on what this research ultimately turns up.
Yes, that's the idea. We have a lot of theory in ecology around how having more species ends up supporting a lot of functions. So this might be things like nutrient cycling and carbon sequestration and water cycling and availability. But we haven't tested them in systems like urban environments in lawns to the same extent. And in lawns, there's a lot of reasons people like to have a green lawn. People want to have a lawn that can withstand that summer drought period, as well as something that's pretty to look at. And so we're really interested in looking to measure, does having more species in your lawn keep your lawn greener? Does it reduce how much fertilizer you have to apply? Can you increase the water availability so that you don't have to water your plants as much in the lawns? Those kinds of questions.
And what about potential environmental impacts and environmental benefits over the long run?
So the great thing about bringing in other species besides just the grasses is that you can also support some pollinators. So a lot of people are familiar with the idea that we have a decline of bees. It's more than just the bees, it's the butterflies and a whole host of other bugs too. But having some flowering plants in your lawn can really provide some benefits for the pollinators. And then there are a whole host of other things. So like having a green lawn might actually lower the temperature around your house. And so those are some other really good benefits.
So how long is this project scheduled to run?
At the moment, I'm planning for at least 5 years. I'm currently waiting to hear back from a grant from the USDA. And so with some external grant support, we'll be able to keep things going longer. One of those benefits that we like to talk about in ecosystems is that carbon sequestration. So that's bringing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and putting it in the soil. And those processes take a really long time. And so we need something like a decade or a half a decade to really be able to quantify, put numbers on the benefits of having a lawn with different numbers of species for that question.
But how much space is being used there? Square feet. I'm not good at. I saw the site, but I'm not good at estimating.
Yeah. We fenced, including the parking lot, just under an acre, and the lawn project is about half of the fenced area.
Will it be expanded at all beyond what's fenced, or do you intend to just use that area that is currently fenced in for the duration of your current experiments?
We'll be focusing on the area inside the fence for the lawn experiment, and then the other half of that field will be a new project that will probably focus on pasture species, which have some different kinds of goals. With a pasture, of course, that's supporting cattle or sheep, you want to grow forage to be able to have livestock, right? So we have some different questions using pasture species, but because of all of the deer, we're going to keep working inside the fence.
Yeah, as you've discovered, there's a big deer population on and off the Vestal campus.
Yes.
And sometimes it seems they're everywhere.
Yeah, and I love your article included a picture of our little owls. And so earlier in the summer, we actually had a bunch of rabbits who were getting through the fence. And so we added a little bit of a rabbit fence on the back corner where we think they were getting in, and then we put up the owls to try to keep the bunnies out.
All right. As I always say, the owls are not what they seem. And that intrigued me, and I figured it was that Actually, that picture of the owl turned out pretty good in the midst of a little bit of fog and clearing fog and blue sky yesterday morning. And I figured there was a very specific reason for. So I wrote, it shows you just the type of person you're dealing with. An owl on the lookout for bearcats or other wildlife near the research site at Nuthatch Hollow Nature Preserve in Vestal. I thought, gee, that ought to win me a couple of New York State awards.
Absolutely.
So
I wish we had bearcats. They might help us control some of the bunnies.
Well, you never know. Keep your eyes open. That, as you know, that our environment is constantly changing. It's always in flux. Anything else you wanted to add about your project?
That's everything. If folks have questions, the QR code on the sign will link to a form that they can directly reach out to contact us. So we welcome comments or questions, and we'll be producing a seasonal newsletter to give people updates from the findings along the way.
Also, if people go to our website, WNBF.com, if they click on your name, it will take them. There's a link to your website so they can go directly to see about the Plant Ecosystem Lab at BU.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Well, again, thank you for calling in on the spur of the moment. I am fascinated by all types of research, and I know the university had done an article about this. I think Jennifer McHale wrote something last spring, but I hadn't seen it. And I just thought, hey, if this intrigues me as I drive by, I bet some other people who pass by on Jensen Road might also want to know what's up. So it's very interesting research. Perhaps we'll invite you back on the program at some point in the future.
I'd be happy to. And it's lovely getting feedback from the public. We've really enjoyed the interactions we've had.
Dr. Amber Churchill, also known as Amy, thank you for being with us on WNBF. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you very much. Bye.
9:54 at WNBF, WNBF.com. I just love discovering something like I hadn't heard about it. Here I thought I knew it all. It turns out I don't know what I don't know. Now the forecast. A nice weather forecast. We put up with some chilly weather the last few days, and now suddenly it gets better. Sunny today, high 64. Mainly clear tonight. Patchy fog, patchy frost, low 35. Tomorrow, sunny and nice, high 67. Be a good day to be stacking wood and eating donuts from Endicott, drinking cider and stacking more wood. There's an idea. And then the extended forecast, sunny on Sunday, high 69. Sunny on Monday, high 72. Hey, I'll give you the whole forecast. Sunny Tuesday, high 73. Mostly sunny on Wednesday, high 71. And even Thursday, partly sunny. Chance of showers, cooler, high 54. So there you go. We're in for some very nice weather over the next week or so. Right now, somewhat chilly, 37, that's 3 Celsius, but it should warm up to the mid-60s by this afternoon, so you won't need a jacket. Won't need a jacket. By the way, we mentioned WNBF.com. If you want to see some other local stories, you can go to the website. We also did do a story about the situation that happened on Robinson Street on Thursday afternoon. And indeed, there was a significant police presence for a little less than an hour on that stretch of Robinson Street, about 4 blocks west of Calvin Coolidge Elementary School. And figured it's important to do a story because if people see all that activity, they want to know what was going on. So I felt even though it turned out to be, in the grand scheme of things, not a whole lot, nobody injured, and apparently a relatively minor charge, you see that kind of activity in your neighborhood 4 blocks from an elementary school, I think it's important that we try to give you some information. That's what we do. So Bob Joseph live on WNBF. Joining us in the studio is Mayor Jared Cram. Welcome back.
Good morning, Bob. How are you?
Good. City Council still reviewing your budget proposal?
They are. Went late into last night with the meeting, but unless there's any new surprises, I think that was probably the last, major budget hearing, and then it'll head towards legislation next week to get voted on. So we have our 2025 spending plan.
When will they vote on it? Wednesday?
It should be voted on Wednesday. That's right.
So has council made any significant changes to the proposal that you submitted? Anything that comes to mind?
I wouldn't say anything significant, and I would say that the budget process was very similar to past budget processes where, this is a few hundred-page spending document, a spending plan. They're going line by line. Department heads are going down. So it followed very much the patterns of previous budget cycles. And I would say that the cuts or shifts were minimal, not anything that would be impacting large parts of city operations. And there were good questions asked. Obviously, we have a new group on city council. And so some of these things are their first time through different aspects of capital expenditures and different enterprise funds and how the New York State Comptroller's Office wants to see municipalities do budgeting and prep for their spending plan. So it's a lot of, explaining that, making sure that we have the key projects that are funded, making sure the police department has the manpower they need, making sure that we've got the capital funding to pave roads next year, kind of those core aspects of municipal government. And so far that's been going smoothly, and I anticipate a good budget for next year.
So bottom line, what was the total, grand total of your proposed spending for 2025?
Roughly $108 million.
All right. And how big an increase, do you recall, percentage-wise, the increase between 2024 and 2025?
So we'll have to look at once all of the budget numbers are crunched and kind of where everything lands. But when I proposed it, it was a 0.9% levy increase. And so, obviously we've been dealing with increased costs and health insurance and pensions, but, we really worked hard to bring that, tax stability to the budget. I think if you compare that against a lot of other municipalities, certainly against a lot of school districts that are voting to exceed their tax cap, puts Binghamton in a good spot. It's not doing things that are fiscally irresponsible. But again, we want to really look out for the taxpayer. In the weeks leading up to the budget, and really even in the days and nights leading up to the budget, I was really racking my brain looking at different things in the budget to try to get that as low as possible. Because, the difference between a 2% and a 0.9% or 0.9 and 0.5, in real dollars for the average household isn't a lot. But after, a lot of years of rapid tax increases, going back more than a decade, tax stability, balanced budgets is, one of my main goals as mayor. And so it was really important that we got to that. We had to make some tough decisions, but I really feel that in 2025 we'll have, the funding to do a lot of the projects that residents care about and residents want, but also not overburden taxpayers for it.
So what's the then likely tax rate impact, assuming again that there are minimal changes, and it appears that's likely to be the case once council wraps up its review and approves a spending plan?
Something for an average homeowner, something like $15 for the year, roughly. And in my budget address, I outlined some of the more specific numbers on that. But I believe, in thinking back to it, I believe it was something like $15 for next year.
It's 10:15. We're talking with Binghamton Mayor Jared Cram here on News Radio, WNBF, WNBF.com. You have mentioned, and we talked about it the last time you were on the program, that one of the things you're going to plan on doing is get the ball rolling for a new fire station on the north side. So tell us a little bit about the process that will be involved, because obviously you can't just say one day, well, that fire station needs to be replaced, so we're going to pick this spot and start building it in a couple of months. It's going to take, I'm sure, a fair amount of time to do it correctly.
Exactly. And just to give listeners some kind of history and context, anyone who drives on the north side is probably familiar with the city fire station at the corner of Frederick and Shenango, right near the Binghamton Plaza. That fire station has been there since 1960. Actually was able to find some of the old news clippings when that was built originally, and it's really at the end of its useful life. We have a number of historic fire stations all across the city of Binghamton. This one has some foundation and structural issues that, in having some engineers, architects look at the building, the cost to repair those deficiencies and the impact on the operations of the fire department, are in the millions of dollars. And when you're really getting to that point, it really just makes more sense to build a purpose-built 21st century fire station that has all of the safety protections that firefighters deserve, the layout, the space that they all need. So what we're doing in next year's budget is we're allocating money to do sort of a feasibility and design and really site plan for where a new fire station can go. There's a lot of different available land on the north side of the city of Binghamton. We don't yet have a spot in mind of where it could go, but having an architect come in, get us some budget estimates, kind of plan out where it can go, that is a plan that I can take to our state and federal lawmakers, different agencies, and try to get grant funding. Because ultimately my goal would be to pay for this fire station, not by city tax dollars, but get a grant to pay for the entirety of it, so we can have a brand new fire station for Northside residents, for the firefighters, and also not burden the taxpayers. That will take a couple years in order to get a plan together, find a site, and identify and secure funding. But it's kind of the proactive way of doing things and not investing more and putting a Band-Aid on that building on the north side. I want to be clear. The building is safe. There's no issues in terms of it, going to collapse. Everything's fine. We're just seeing that 5-10 years down the road, it will not be able to sustain having that heavy fire apparatus on the floor, really meeting the needs of what a 21st century station really needs. And anyone who's been to our new fire headquarters knows the difference between that type of station and some of the neighborhood stations that we have elsewhere in the city.
Speaking of the new fire station, which has now been in use doesn't seem as new anymore, but I know initially there were some glitches and things that had to be worked out after it opened up. Is everything operating correctly, as far as you know, at the new fire station on Court Street?
Yeah, as far as I know, and actually just a couple months ago during one of the summer storms, we had a tree that went through a window in the front of the place, so we have a brand new building. I mean, obviously, we've gotten that taken care of. So any type of new building where there's new systems, new technology, there's going to be some, kind of a learning curve. But to my knowledge, things have been squared away, and I do still think that as the years progress and firefighters become comfortable in the building, there will continue to be more tweaks, again, with technology, with how the spaces are used. I know at one point in the ramp up, the communication aspects of the building, getting that figured out. But no, it's operating very well, and really the firefighters have used it as a sense of pride, I think, for the department. It's won awards for its design. One of the key things that certainly firefighters think about, but maybe those who aren't in it on a day-to-day basis, is that firefighters, that profession, those individuals who serve have a really high rate of cancer after they retire, and sometimes even during the job. And a lot of that has to do with the carcinogens they're dealing with at the site of fires, the fact that they're taking their work clothes into the areas where they stay, they sleep in the firehouses. So the design of that new building took into account having kind of a dirty area where those carcinogens can be cleaned, and having a clean area where nothing from a fire scene will ever enter. To design a building like that can be quite expensive and can impact operations, but for the protection of the long term of firefighters, it was important we did that.
About fire apparatus, we've, I think, touched on how expensive equipment is, and good thing about fire trucks and other rolling stock that people see responding to fires, at least they last a long time, but they're expensive. What is in store for the fire department in terms of any new apparatus in the next year or two?
So there is nothing new added in the 2025 budget in terms of apparatus, but in my first 3 years as mayor, we've made unprecedented investments in the fire apparatus and in the trucks that are saving the lives and putting out fires. We ordered a new rescue rig for the downtown headquarters in just the first months that I was mayor. Just earlier this year, we brought online a new pumper engine that will serve on the south side of the city of Binghamton. And then we have on order a tower apparatus, which is replacing about a 20-year-old piece of equipment. This is the high reach ladders when firefighters have to fight fires in a downtown environment, a high-rise environment. They can also be used as part of water rescue operations. That apparatus was about $2 million. And the lead time from the time we place the order to when it actually gets delivered is 3 years. So think about going out and buying a new car. You've selected, the convertible Bob that you always wanted, and they say, great, we'll take your down payment now and we'll see you in 3 years. But that's the demand for this type of apparatus. And I think about a lot as my role as mayor. If we're not talking about fire trucks and we're not talking about fire stations or we're not talking about police vehicles, these are at the core of municipal services. These are at the core of what we do as a city, and it's really important that we have the tools for firefighters to respond quickly, to save lives, put out fires, and really keep them safe as well.
It's 10:22. We're speaking with Jared Cram, the mayor of Binghamton, on this Friday morning. You're listening to Binghamton Now on WNBF. It's 10:25. We're in the studio here with Binghamton Mayor Jared Cram. We're just looking up on the monitor showing some of the clips from last night's Al Smith dinner. So what was that like to be there? It must have been for a mayor from Binghamton, New York, to be at the Al Smith dinner with all the luminaries. Of course, Donald Trump was there. Kamala Harris sent a video. Tish James, I believe Chuck Schumer. It was like anybody of note, and then mayor from Binghamton.
Yeah, when Cardinal Dolan sent the invitation to sit on the dais with really the power of New York, I was surprised, but you can't turn down that sort of invitation. Hey. Jim Gaffigan, really killed it as MC. And just for your listeners, I was not at the Al Smith dinner in Midtown Manhattan last night.
But the part that was true is we were looking at the video, and we were just commenting about the history of the dinner, and also, as I was mentioning to Mayor Cram, something that seems sort of similar, where you get a turnout of almost anybody who's anybody in terms of New York City and New York State politics is at the Mass at St. Patrick's Cathedral on St. Patrick's Day, right before the parade. And there is a similar turnout of almost anybody, whether they're powerful political figures or business figures in New York City or New York State. But the Al Smith dinner certainly is one of those places where just about everybody showed up. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier in the program, Kamala Harris, I think correctly from a political standpoint, with the clock running between now and Election Day, decided she wasn't going to get any votes at that dinner. Better to campaign in Wisconsin. Otherwise, if she didn't need to get votes, she probably would have been there. I'm sure she would have enjoyed it and probably had a good time.
Yeah, it's remarkable, and really, it's one of kind of the last types of events like that. The Correspondents' Dinner, the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the Al Smith Dinner. I mean, these are things from decades past, but it's always kind of fun to see them in the 21st century here, and seems to be as strong as ever, and really driving the news this morning with politics and newsmakers.
It's 10:27 as we return to Binghamton topics. Let's talk about Water Street, and specifically we'll talk about what's going on at Boscov's and around Boscov's, and also the soon-to-be completed parking garage. Where do things stand with both Boscov's and the parking facility?
Your listeners, if they have been on Water Street, will notice that there's been some work done to the facade, kind of the men's store entrance area of Boscov that's been cleaned up. And should be by the end of the day today, the fencing, the construction fencing moved back, that was currently blocking some on-street parking, moved back to really the limits of the garage to open up that parking area for shoppers in downtown Binghamton. And as it relates to the garage, as you covered over the summer, really the precast concrete went up very, very quickly and almost overnight if you didn't notice it. But that was just the skeleton and really the kind of structure of the garage. We've had subcontractors, plumbing, electrical, general contractors over the last several months working on everything else that makes the garage a garage. And so they're running electrical lines. They're doing a lot of sealing of the garage itself, making sure that our parking operations and that technology and equipment is in line. So we are still on track to have the first level open before the Christmas shopping season, before Black Friday. We are opening up the on-street parking here, hopefully by the end of the day today. And we're waiting for NYSEG to power up the building. We're waiting on some electrical and lighting aspects, but paving is done inside. It's striped, and we are just weeks away from that garage, at least the first floor of the garage being opened, and being able to serve both Boscov's customers, really any visitors for downtown Binghamton.
Is there a target date? Thanksgiving, I just checked, I believe it's November 28th. Do you have a sense of what a tentative target date would be to at least have the first stage opening of the new garage?
I would say that week of Thanksgiving would be my current target. And, what our hope is that there's been aspects of this that have taken a little bit longer, but then there's been other aspects which have happened a lot more quickly. I really have to thank the local contractors that we have, Matco, Petkoski, as well as William H. Lane. These are local companies, local labor, and they've been doing really an outstanding job at the garage and not letting things kind of delay. They've been working very well in coordination, and frankly, that's what you get when you hire local. These are people that are in our community and have been doing a great job on a pretty complex project. This is a large-scale investment in downtown Binghamton.
Are you aware of any specific major supply chain issues? Because I know certain projects around here wind up not getting completed on time because for lack of 2 or 3 final components. I know the work that was done near here in front of Metro Center, it took a while for, I think, the final lighting fixtures to come in, several months, and supply chain issues were greater back then, either in or emerging from COVID. Johnson City with their Leicester Avenue Bridge, a couple of the light poles that they want to put toward the center, they won't be installed when the bridge opens at the end of the month. They may not come in till January. As far as key components for the Water Street parking garage, are there any problems that you know about?
Not problems necessarily, but the 2 items, and you mentioned one of them, lighting and lighting fixtures, all of that infrastructure is a huge lead time, and there have been delays in getting that on site. Again, nothing the contractor has done, but just on supply chain. And the second is the lead time for elevators. There will be an elevator, obviously, in the garage, and that was something that we kind of planned in, but that is going to be installed in the coming weeks. But the elevator and elevator components are hugely in demand. Obviously, any building nowadays with ADA requirements, typically requires an elevator. So the demand is huge, and that supply chain has been very, very slow.
Will conceivably, could the not having the elevator functional, is that potentially one of the final snags in getting the whole thing opened up?
I think that eventually it's more the lighting aspects of it, but our plan is to make the first floor available for parking as quickly as we can. Then as the other floors are kind of finished, hopefully in the weeks kind of leading or thereafter, we'll get those open as well. But we have to make sure that the garage also meets all codes, so we can't open something early. We have to make sure that all of our checklist items are done. We want to make sure that people that utilize the garage, that it's well lit. There's some exterior elements of the garage, and I know that my office released some concept renderings of some lighting and facade work and screening that I think will really enhance the look. That's something that will happen later on as well. That work is not really impacting the operations of the garage. It's more aesthetics in nature. So some of the lighting that has to do with those exterior aesthetics is also on back order. But again, I can't really thank our local contractors enough. The concrete supplier from Unistress, that they seem to get better at it every time they do a project in Binghamton. 7 Hawley Street was done this way. Water Street Garage was done, I think, even more seamlessly than 7 Hawley. So really exciting project and really important for downtown Binghamton. We're in Restaurant Week right now, Bob, and I know it continues into next week, but the amount of demand to go to our independent restaurants for events at the Forum and the Arena downtown, the other types of community events that we have in downtown Binghamton, it takes parking, and we need to be able to support all of our small businesses. And I know that when this garage is done and complete and the street is open back up again, a lot of the restaurants will be glad, and they can point their customers that are trying to get those in-demand tables at Lost Dog or Garage or Burger Mondays, a really prime place to park.
It's 10:34. We're talking with Binghamton Mayor Cram here on WNBF. It was 11 months ago that a major announcement was made about the future of Boscov's, a $10 million improvement project that was announced, and it was said to be part of a deal to keep Boscov's in downtown Binghamton for another decade. Where do things stand? Because there was so much talk and enthusiasm nearly a year ago, and yet I'm wondering how much has actually been done over the last 11 months since the big announcement with Jim Boscov and local officials.
A heck of a lot behind the scenes. Working through this type of deal, which is very unique. It's really a publicly owned building owned by the local development corporation. So getting a lease in place, a long-term lease that works for Boscov's and the city of Binghamton, some of the finer details on that, as well as the parking agreement where Boscov's will be able to validate for customers. So if you're shopping at Boscov's, you'll have free parking. Those are kind of the details being worked out. But as I mentioned the last time we spoke, some of the same elements that have long lead times for the parking garage, like elevators, like lighting, these are going to be aspects that go into the redevelopment and rehabilitation of Boscov's. And so we have a construction consultant on board that is working through the plan. We're really excited about it, and in the early parts of next year, people that shop at Boscov's will notice more noticeable changes that are happening in terms of rehabilitation of the building. And I know that Boscov's will be more than thrilled when the parking garage opens back up and it provides their shoppers, an easy access. One of the points that I forgot to mention on the parking garage is residents will remember a bridge that connected some of the upper stories of the garage to the Boscov's upper stories. That bridge will be back, and that's one of the items that has a longer lead time. So that bridge will be going in. There will be a crane on Water Street at some point here in the coming months to install that bridge. So, those are the things that we want to make sure access to Boscov's is there. But this garage is going to serve more than just Boscov's.
So has the 10-year lease extension still not been finalized? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, there's been a letter of understanding with the details of the term of the lease that's been signed. That's all done. The deal is done. It's just been coordinating with construction teams from Boscov's and from the city of Binghamton on what the outlay of construction, what the order will be, and then cleaning up a lot of the legal matters as it relates to not only the lease for Boscov's, but also the parking agreement that they have really with the city of Binghamton.
But it's your understanding they're still going to commit to 10 years?
Yes. Nothing has changed in terms of the core tenets of the deal. We're keeping Boscov's in here for the long term, and we're getting that store, a publicly owned facility, the upgrades that it needs.
When do you think people will start seeing real activity inside the store? Because Jim Boscoff had mentioned some specific changes, removal of the escalator, and I believe elimination of the sales floor. The top floor would no longer be used for merchandise. When is that likely to happen?
I think that, you'll see some stuff first work in the men's store that's happening there. But a lot of the issues with the building are actually kind of behind the scenes. It's in electrical service. Again, I mentioned the elevators. It's in HVAC improvements. These are really expensive items, and with a project of this size, it's stuff that has to happen in the long term. It's just not going to be very visible. But into next year, I would say, early 2025, you'll see more hard hats going in and out of that building.
It was announced as a $10 million improvement project. Some people told me that's not enough for the work that needs to be done and the work that Boscoff wants to be done. Will more money be needed? Is the city going to work to try to obtain more funding to do the necessary to make sure that store is in good shape for the city and for Boscoff for the next decade?
Well, $10 million is a lot of money, and it will accomplish a lot of what we need. And again, that's why I'm not a construction or engineering professional. We've hired a local, LaChase is actually working with the BLDC to make sure that the pricing is what we need. And this is what the deal we have at the time. Obviously, we were able to secure some grants to support the work. Boscoff is chipping in some money. It will make a significant difference. And again, this investment is getting us another decade of Boscoff here in Binghamton.
But do you think the city will seek additional support, say, from the state going forward? Because, $10 million sounds like a lot, but I know Wegmans spent more than $10 million, maybe even $12 million on their renovation a year ago, and looked like they got their money's worth, but they spent perhaps more than what Boscoff is planning to spend or what's planned for that store. And $10 million for construction work these days doesn't get you what it did 2 or 5 years ago.
Sure, but no, I don't have any plans right now. Now, I do think that in a future phase, once we fix the core infrastructure of that building, I think everyone in the community wants to see something done with the facade of the building. I know Assemblywoman Lepardo is very passionate about it. I would be as well, in finding a way that we could take off the urban renewal facade that's been put on there and really restore it to its former historic glory. I think that would be a huge improvement for downtown Binghamton. That certainly will take grant funding, and that would take millions more. So I think that would be, after this phase, kind of the next thing we look at, the building envelope, the exterior conditions of that building.
It's going to be expensive. There are a lot of windows that are hidden under that.
There's a ton of windows, and if you walk through every inch of the building, about as I have, you'll be shocked to see all of these historic windows that face, the rear side of a faux brick facade that was put on there. I'm not sure it was ever in style, actually. Maybe it was in 1970s, but
that's what passed for style. I mean, if you look at this building where we are, which had been the Sisson's department store building, then I think when it was Key Bank, about 50 years ago, somebody came up with the idea to do what they did to it now, the way it looks now. And if you talk to Roger Luther, and he's actually done the visualization of what this building could look like if it were restored to its previous splendor. So that's what they did in the 70s.
Yeah.
Take a look at City Hall.
Glass house should not throw stones. You're right.
I rest my case.
I know.
If it pleased the court, guilty as charged. By the way, which reminds me, and I think we talked about this on the air maybe once. I know we talked about it off the air. And don't get me wrong, I love our city hall. There's no city hall in America quite like it.
Boston is somewhat similar, maybe. Yes.
Probably designed from the same era. But one time, and we had this conversation, at least I know when the public hearing was being held about the Binghamton Plaza, and you and I were pointing out some of the the beautiful 1970s sensibility about City Council chamber. Is there any hope of doing any kind of renovations, modernization, or something with the City Council chamber including things like removing the ashtrays from the chairs back in the day when you could smoke cigarettes during city council meetings. I guess that was a thing, but it still feels so 20th century.
It is. It's a very old, and it's not a functional space. I mean, I remember as a kid going to first night events there where they would be used as some sort of theater or a stage. But I think that one of the challenges with that is that in order to really do something dynamic and really fix that, you're talking about multi-million dollars. And I think that, and I haven't had direct conversations with this current city council, but historically speaking, it's really tough for a local government when we have, a lot of different needs to kind of focus money or make investments in that type of space. Now, that being said, I do think that with some changes and with some improvements, that could be another usable and kind of really dynamic and flexible space for downtown Binghamton. You can fit a lot of people in that area. It's just set up very poorly. It is not easily accessible for folks who use a wheelchair. It's odd. It's really hot in the summertime and really cold in the wintertime. We've made do with the best we can. Probably has the most uncomfortable chairs in Broome County, maybe by design. I don't know, but it's one of those things where I don't have that as my top priority. I think in the long term, probably something should be done. But I think what will end up happening is, long after I'm mayor and decades from now, probably the city hall itself will have to be looked at, hey, at a certain point, the building right now is 50 years old plus. When it's 70, 80 years old, is this even functional at that point? And I think the folks in authority at that time will probably make that decision.
It's 10:45. More to come with Binghamton Mayor Jared Cram on Binghamton Now on WNBF. Always a lot to talk about here in the Parlor City. Town and Country Apartment Complex, about 253 apartment units on the north side. And as we've established over the last few years, it's in bad shape. I do see some activity happening now with some of the buildings. The windows on the ground floor of at least a few of the buildings have been boarded up. What is going on? What's the status of the complex where so many people live on the north side?
Sure, there's new ownership at that site, and the new owners are going to be the individuals that are moving forward with a very, very large, $40-50 million gut renovation of that entire complex. Over the last several weeks, they've started to do some clean out of some specific vacant units, making sure that some buildings are secured. I think that there's some, again, just general kind of cleanup work that's being done and prepping for construction. And really the next update on that project with the Broome IDA approving the tax incentives at their meeting this week, the next big update will likely come from the governor's office themselves with announcement of those tax credits in the closing. And then, major construction work will start right thereafter. Kind of all of the approvals have been complete. The state signed off on different things. And, it's kind of just waiting, kind of like closing on a house, where attorneys are involved and they're kind of getting everything together. So very, very soon, that project will be underway and the improvements will be made at that building.
So who now owns or manages the place?
It's a company called Vesta, Vesta. They have a lot of experience in affordable housing, and New York State Homes and Community Renewal has approved of their plan. They were brought in when it became clear that the prior owner was not going to be able to fulfill the expectations of New York State. Certainly the city had an investment in it as well. And so this will be the group that will kind of punch it into the end zone on the project and get things moving.
So I believe you have said approximately 100 of the 250 or so apartments at this point are vacant.
I would say that that's a rough number. Certainly we know that there's about 250 units in the place, and a large number of these apartments are vacant. And the reason why is that in order to do construction, the crews have to have a certain number of vacant buildings that they can go in. There's actually more than 20 individual buildings on this property. So the buildings are vacant as people move out. Construction crews can go in. There's typically 4 units per building, a little bit more. They will renovate that building and then move in people who are currently living at the complex into those brand new units, and then thus creating another vacant building that they can kind of move to next. And that will be done methodically over the course of construction.
There was a tragedy at the complex, I believe September 30th, so it's been a little less than 3 weeks, with 41-year-old Terrell Norris being wounded, I believe, in the head, and he was in his apartment. He died of that bullet wound. We haven't heard of any arrest in connection with his death, or also in connection with the shooting of a man who was wounded in the leg or ankle. He was found a block or so away from the shooting incident. It happened evidently in the parking lot outside Building 2 at 10:15 on a Monday night. Where do things stand with respect to finding the killer of Terrell Norris?
And I think that this incident, this tragedy, continues to put a spotlight on what I've been saying for years. And as mayor, from the first days that I was in office, calling on the state and working behind the scenes to cut through the bureaucracy of getting a project done there that will improve safety for people who live there, will improve security measures, will update that housing complex from something that has been problematic from a public safety scenario for probably more than a decade at least, into something that Northside residents can be proud of, people can feel safe to live in, and can add to the affordable housing stock in the city. Again, when I say this shines a spotlight on it, this is what I've been talking about. As it relates to the investigation, detectives are working actively on this case. They, as is the case in a lot of different investigations, speaking broadly, investigators, typically can develop some details and some suspects in the early case, but they need to have a case that's built that can lead to an indictment and ultimately lead to a conviction. And that's what sometimes takes the most amount of time. But it is an active investigation. Certainly anyone with details regarding it can contact the Detective Bureau. And I would say that, in this case, as is the case in a lot of other shootings or other crimes, there are witnesses, or there are those who understand and know who is responsible for this. And in this case, this was an innocent bystander who was in their home, who were shot and killed. People know what happened. People know who's responsible for what happened, and for whatever reason have been unwilling to come forward with the details. And so while our detectives do a great job and are going to, I believe, ultimately solve this case and bring justice to the victim's family, it can be helped out greatly by ordinary citizens choosing to do the right thing and provide information to the police department. And that's key to this case. But I'm confident that this case will be solved.
Has there been any discussion of offering a reward? I've been struck by, since Terrell Norris's death, there's been very little attention by the media or anyone else to what happened there, compared to, say, in April 2022, when Eliza Spencer was killed while walking with her dad and brother over on Bigelow Street. That case received a lot of attention for several months, and a big reward was offered initially, and that reward fund grew. We've heard essentially nothing about this case, and in both cases, innocent people were shot to death in Binghamton.
I would say that the dynamics of the cases are different, and I don't want to get into some of the specifics of an active investigation, but I would just say that the dynamics are different in terms of information that police have, and knowledge of kind of the events of that night when the individual was shot at Town and Country. And so we obviously have been spending a lot of time on the case. Binghamton police detectives have, and I think they have a lot of leads that have come in. And
so that suggests to me that they have a pretty good idea of who's responsible. But may just not have enough evidence, as you say, for a potential successful prosecution if someone is brought in and charged.
And that's the case, and especially with today's day and age, and this is kind of a broad statement on it's not enough to just be able to have an idea of who did it, but you have to prove it for an indictment and grand jury, and then ultimately a conviction and sentencing, which is the ultimate goal of this. And so our detectives work methodically. They know the law very well, and are experienced investigators that want to do these investigations the right way.
And notably, there are a couple of flock plate readers just a few steps away from where the shooting happened, and more nearby in the neighborhood. So if anybody drove into or out of that neighborhood on that Monday night, their license plate was recorded by one or more plate readers.
That is correct.
So that could be an investigative tool. Another high-profile shooting that happened in Binghamton earlier this year was near the stadium, and that was in February, where a young man was killed on a Friday afternoon around 5 p.m. on a Friday near the stadium, and we've heard essentially nothing about the status of that case.
What I'll say on that is, again, very similar to the Town and Country shooting is detectives have been working it. I believe that, again, it's building a case is what the most important part is. And like Town and Country, there are witnesses, involved parties, others that know information about what happened, could identify the responsible parties, and are choosing not to cooperate with law enforcement. One of the reasons that it's different today than it was, say, 5-10 years ago is that a lot of times detectives would be able to flip potential individuals that were being charged with other crimes to have them cooperate, kind of cut a deal. Certainly we want to solve a homicide more than we want to, have a max penalty on a lower level crime. The fact that all of the cases that people are being arrested for, typically they're getting lighter sentences. Typically it's more difficult to prosecute. A lot of the laws that have changed in the state of New York make the job of detectives more difficult, and make the job of prosecutors more difficult in proving these cases in court. So what was used to be a very effective tool for detectives, due to some of the criminal justice changes, that's gone away a little bit.
It's 10:57 here at WNBF. We, I think, talked about this briefly before, maybe a couple months ago, but the issue hasn't gone away. The house there at 188 Court Street, the Akels bought the house, or FGR Realty, and they are still seeking approval here several months later to tear it down. At one point, I was told that potentially the city might get involved to see if there were options to having the house torn down for 7 additional parking spaces next to the office building, and also next to the church next door. Is the city going to get involved to possibly come up with an alternative to having that house torn down in the next couple of months?
At least from my perspective as mayor, I want to see the process play out as is required between the Planning Commission and CAUD, and then if it comes to a point where there seems to be no fork left in the road, right? We could potentially look at something like that. But I think as of right now, I need to let that process play out, and see if there could be a solution through the existing means of the Planning Commission and Commission on Architecture and Urban Design.
Have there been any kind of informal conversations about options?
No.
And one other thing, Crowley Lofts. What's the status of that project for the former Crowley plant?
There were some approvals done by the Broome County IDA this week. Right now, the project is still undergoing interior demolition, and the project owners are getting construction bids. As everyone knows, construction prices continue to increase year after year after year. So putting together those bids and financing are what's happening. But there has been active work over there from a demolition standpoint, and they're working on and have received, just as of this week, some incentive approvals from the Broome County IDA.
Is the initial plan that was announced, still intact? Have any changes been made? by the developer?
The broad strokes are still the same. Market rate housing. I believe it was something like 48 units, if my recollection serves me. So that is the same plan. Yes.
Oh, quickly. We only have a few seconds left. Anything new over at the Conklin Avenue site of the former Wise Market?
Nothing new.
All right. Well, if there is, give me a call.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Binghamton Mayor Jared Cram, thanks for covering a few of the issues around our city. And the mayor will be back on the program in November after the elections.
That's right.
Yep.
Thanks, Bob.
And then everything gets back to normal. It's 11 o'clock. This is Binghamton Now on News Radio, WNBF. 92.1 FM, 1290 AM, streaming WNBF.com. When I answer the phone, there is a high probability you'll be on the air. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, sir. Dave from Vestal. How's it going?
It is going well. Thank you.
Good, Bob. Hey, since the community is the community, let's stick with that. I got to ask you a question, Bob. You remember back months ago when the county executive ordered all hotels, motels, you're not taking the migrants in. They're trying to ship them here from the city. Remember that?
Yes, we reported it on WNBF.
Mm-hmm. Well, my question to you, Bob, is has he changed his mind without notifying the public? Do you know anything? I'm asking you because...
Not to my knowledge. Why? Do you have evidence to the contrary?
Well, I figured you being a confident reporter, your ear's always to the ground. Me, on the other hand, my ear's always to the underground. So I hear lots of things. Yeah, I'm hearing things about the Y, Bob, in the city being prepared. I'm hearing Red Roof Inn, JC.
For illegal immigrants?
Housing, yes.
Well, for housing, yeah, lots of places are going to be prepared for housing. It doesn't mean that it's to house people who aren't in the United States legally. Yeah, there'll be more housing projects, and I'll tell you why. Because this area needs a lot more housing. So I would say buckle up, as BTO would say. But baby, you ain't seen nothing yet. There are going to be a lot of additional housing projects, but I have no information to suggest that they're designed for people who are in the United States illegally.
So easy to find out. You go stake out a hotel. I got lots.
I'm not gonna stake out a hotel. I got too much to do. I mean, if you have a lot of time on your hands and you want to, make people unhappy, go stake out a hotel. I've seen online where people do that. It's kind of creepy, but
if it's being done without notifying the public, Bob, that's wrong.
All right. Well, I'll put it out there right now. If people who work at hotels, motels, or other places of accommodation are aware of people who are coming in to Broome or Tioga counties and they're being housed by the government illegally, or not by the government illegally, if they're in the country illegally and they're getting housing in the Binghamton area, I think they should let me know, because that could be a news story.
I think so too, Bob.
All right. So, yeah, as far as the rumors and speculation and innuendo, yeah, there is a lot of that. I go out into the community too, almost every day. I'm talking with just average folks, so I hear a lot, but I don't. When it comes to this issue, I haven't seen anything.
I know they tried very hard to push some on down to our area, and I'm just wondering, did they?
Who tried? Who tried very hard?
Well, whatever group there was. Remember, they were trying to move some from the city upstate because they're just overloaded down in the city. They were trying to move them around the state.
Well, organizations based in New York City, of course, are always going to look for a place. I mean, look at upstate New York. I think upstate New York is 93% empty. So if you look at it that way, if you're in New York City where nearly 8 million people are living on Manhattan Island, I would say I can see why people would look for residential accommodations outside the city. Plus, it would be cheaper.
Jason Gardner, turn him down, Bob. I just hope he's sticking to it.
Well, I'm looking at the story. It says Broome fights New York City move to allow use of housing vouchers. And the emergency order that he issued was issued just over a year ago, October 3rd, 2023. I've heard nothing to suggest that it's going to be rescinded.
Wow, it's been over a year, but look how time's flying. It doesn't seem like it. I thought it was just a few months ago. Wow.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, again, keep your eyes open. If you get solid information, you pass it on to me.
Oh, certainly. I'll do that.
All right. Thanks. 11:18, WNBF. Good morning. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Gary on the west side. Hello, Bob. I wanted to, thank Mayor Graham for coming on. I think it's pretty important that he answered a lot of questions today that, give me a different outlook of the city. They're trying to take care of it and stuff. And, the sad thing that I learned today, Bob, was that with all of these homicides in the city, it's not a police problem. It's a parenting problem. We don't teach our kids to tell the truth anymore. So somebody may witness something, and instead of saying, I saw they were arguing and this guy pulled out a gun and shot, now you're called a snitch. You can't, you can't tell the truth. If you tell the truth, it's something bad.
Snitches get stitches.
It's a parenting problem too. It's just
but it's
really
also
ridiculous.
It's not just parenting, it's societal, and the fact that people are afraid to say what they know about someone being killed. I mean, I get it. I have to admit, here's the thing, Gary. If I knew something, if I had firsthand knowledge about somebody who was shot to death, I would be concerned for my safety. I'm not saying I wouldn't tell what I knew to the cops, but say if I was in a position to be the only person or one of very few people who knew specific information about a killer in Binghamton, I would be concerned for my safety. I would probably tell the cops what I knew, but even then, I'd be concerned that if someone, especially if it was intentional, but even if it was someone who unintentionally killed someone, and they knew that Bob was probably the only person who actually could identify them in a lineup or at trial, I would be worried about my safety. I'd like to think that I would suck it up and say, but the right thing to do is to call 607-772-7080 and talk to the investigators. Say, first off, I'm afraid, but I'm calling to do the right thing. But you need to know I'm afraid for my life. So before we go any further, please try to give me some reassurance that even though I'm going to do the right thing, that I'm not going to pay a serious price. But I certainly understand why some people are extremely reluctant to come forward.
Well, you made a good point there, Bob. I didn't think about that immediately, but
think about it. And again, say if it was someone who fired a gun, fired a gun and did not intend to kill anyone. Say a shot that was fired during some sort of disturbance in an apartment complex parking lot, and the shot was designed just to, these days, to make a point during an argument. And it turns out, you find out later that the bullet went through a window and wound up hitting somebody who was uninvolved in the head. and say you're 17. You say you're 17. I mean, you know, you're going to go home to your parents and say, what can I do? I'm scared, and what can I do? And then say if she has a friend, you know, what's her friend supposed to do? Say, you know, go to the cops and say, Felicia told me she did it. So I don't know. It's all
and
hypothetical.
You know, you're making a good point, but you know what else too, Bob? Like and this is kind of sad, you know, if they put a reward out large enough, people will say something.
Maybe. But see, that was one of the things. See, that's one of the things that intrigues me about the two high-profile deadly shootings from this year that are unsolved. The one that happened less than 3 weeks ago at Town and Country Apartments on the north side, and also the shooting that happened last February near Mirabito Stadium at 5 on a Friday afternoon. Rewards aren't being offered in those cases. And very little is ever said. I don't think the police department or anyone else has held a news conference. I mean, not the police, not the mayor, not the city council representatives in those districts, no community organizations, no one, as far as I know, has held any kind of news conference to try to get a bigger spotlight on bringing the killers in those two cases to justice, compared to the Eliza Spencer case, where, although that doesn't make the news much now, at least in the first weeks and months after she was killed on Bigelow Street, that was in the news a lot. The reward was offered, I think, the less than 24 hours after she was killed, and the reward fund continued to grow. Now, I know the mayor said, and I agree that these other cases differ from what happens on the east side with 12-year-old Eliza Spencer walking with her father and brother. That was different than those two other cases, and I do get the impression, although clearly the mayor had some real constraints about what he could say on a radio show about the investigations. He can't blurt out something that's possibly going to adversely affect the investigations or a successful prosecution. But you get the impression that the police, of course, have probably some substantial information and leads with respect to the two shootings that we're talking about that happened this year, compared to perhaps where things are with respect to the death of Eliza Spencer. So, and I respect that. I always want more information as a journalist, but I also very much respect the investigative process.
Okay. All right, and you created this a scenario about maybe a underage guy, just like the gun went off, and he didn't intend to shoot anybody and all of that, So yeah, it makes you think, oh, geez, should anybody say anything? But there's also ones where they just pull out guns and shoot and kill people, and they know who it is, and they won't say it because they want to handle it their own way.
Well, that's another thing too. There is an element of street justice. Right. That comes into play. I mean, we saw several years ago where a man was shot execution style at point blank range outside an illegal establishment over on the west side on Orton Avenue. So that happens, I think, at around 4 a.m. while a police officer was nearby monitoring, I think, people leaving the after-hours establishment, and that guy got shot in the head. And a few days later, something happened in downtown Binghamton that I believe was pretty much directly connected with what happened on the west side. So, yeah, in a lot of cases, and cops will tell you, after one shooting or maybe a stabbing or something that might involve gang members or young people who are in some sort of loosely affiliated organization, they brace themselves for follow-up, and not say if something happens in Binghamton, the police in Endicott and Johnson City and Vestal and surrounding communities are also on the alert because, hey, a lot of people...
Gangs on the rise, Bob?
What's that?
Binghamton? You would know this
about gangs?
More than anybody. Yeah, are gangs on the rise in Binghamton?
I don't know that gangs are on the rise. I'm thinking that the amount of
they've been here
related activity is probably pretty much at the same level it has been. I don't think there's any way to eradicate it. I have no reason to believe there's more gang related activity. But again, in some of these cases, it's not as though it's a gang with a website and a Twitter feed and a Facebook page and membership cards.
Some of them are stupid enough to do that, though.
Yeah, well,
put stuff on.
Well, of course, and that's another thing. At least around here, for the most part, and there are exceptions. For the most part, people around here who do crimes, whether it's shootings, stabbings, or random attacks, people around here so far typically don't post evidence of their illegal behavior online. Unlike in some other parts of the country where that seems to be more prevalent. But
yeah. Luckily, criminals aren't always the smartest.
Well,
luckily.
Well, that's the thing. And that's why in a lot of cases, especially some high-profile cases, when it comes to homicide investigations or serious assaults, sometimes arrests can be made pretty fast because the perpetrators are not among the best and the brightest. But also
how a TV show got its name, right? 48 Hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
you got to get them in the first 48 hours.
Well,
otherwise,
I think that was part of, because that was a spin-off from a CBS News special, 48 Hours on Crack Street with Dan Rather. And I think just because of the wild success of that one-time special, I think that's how 48 Hours got its name, but I could be wrong.
And now it's just about husbands killing wives and stuff.
Well, hey, I hate to say it. I hate to say it. It's about
part of society.
Well, it's not just part of society. It's about the ratings. Do people watch crime shows, real-life crime shows? Yes. 48 Hours, Dateline NBC.
I used to watch Cops. I love Cops.
Well, I watched it occasionally, too.
Now you can watch actual police interactions with criminals, on YouTube because of cameras, which are great. That's a great thing that they've done. It really is. Look how far policing has come in the past 20 years. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah, and really think of where we're headed in the next 10 or 20 years.
I can't think ahead in the future. No way.
It's good.
Thanks, Bob.
It's a brave new world, and I'm part of it here at WNBF. 11:30, more calls coming up. If you want to participate, 607-772-1290. Bob Joseph, WNBF. And we are live at 11:33, taking more calls because I have the courage to answer the lines, talk with whoever can put together the secret combination. Vinny from Binghamton, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Bob. Hey, I wanted to talk about this Al Smith dinner that went on yesterday. And, Kamala Harris was unable to be there. I know she was out in Wisconsin campaigning. But, it is disturbing to me, the climate of this country. And I would have canceled it if I couldn't get two people there at the same time, because I think that's where this country is. I heard Donald Trump talking about, I'm surprised she didn't show up. Well, Mr. Trump, in 36 years, nobody has missed the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which is a celebration of journalists and freedom of the press. You never went to any of them. You never went to one because you didn't want people to make fun of you. And now there you are talking about Kamala Harris. I mean, how can you sit there? Bob, just last week, these rich donors were together in a meeting with him, and one of them said he called Kamala Harris the R word. And we're sitting up there laughing yesterday. Well, Bob, they're laughing. It's like, what are you doing? If you can't comp Kamala Harris, and it's almost like there's nothing to joke about anymore. There's nothing to normalize anymore of where we are in this country.
It truly is sad that we've gotten to that point. What they should have done, not that the people who organized the dinner ever consult with me, but in this particular case, because they knew the election was less than 3 weeks away, in this case, because they knew the candidates, both candidates, Trump and Harris, need to use every waking moment trying to get votes. If I was them, I would have just pushed back the dinner by 4 weeks, held it on November 14th, and that way, I mean, Kamala Harris still might not have gone, but I bet Donald Trump wouldn't have gone either. Because Trump knew, or had every reason to know, he would get so much media attention, not necessarily positive, but just lots of media attention, because he would be there and Kamala Harris wouldn't, so that's why he showed up. If they scheduled the thing after the election, November 14th, just pushed it back by 4 weeks, maybe neither of them would show up. I mean, certainly the mayor of New York City would show up on November 14th if he's not incarcerated. You know, and Chuck Schumer would show up, maybe he would give a speech about Imperium, IM3 New York, to explain to the people at the Al Smith dinner what happened in Endicott, that type of thing. But yeah, they shouldn't take it. They should not in any way take it as some kind of affront that Kamala Harris didn't show up. She needs to campaign, and she knew.
Exactly.
She's bright enough. She didn't need any campaign consultant to tell her that her time on Thursday would have been better spent in Wisconsin than in Manhattan. She knows how she's going to do in Manhattan. She doesn't have to worry about New York City or New York State. She does have to worry about Wisconsin and Pennsylvania and a few other battleground states. That's where she and Tim Walz need to spend their time if they want to be victorious. And the same with the Republicans.
And if anybody has, to me, if anybody has anything to complain about, it should be complain about that White House Correspondents' Dinner, Bob. I mean, you being a journalist.
I know. I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken that he wouldn't go.
Freedom of the press, man.
Yep.
Freedom of the press.
You know, that basically, I'll tell you this, Vinny. You know, that figuratively, that was like flipping off every reporter, not just every journalist in America, every journalist in the world. He managed to flip off by failing to attend what was a presidential tradition for so many years.
Yep. You guys give away scholarships. You guys give away awards. You sit there and you make fun of each a network, and it's a time to just take a breath, sit back, good times. Hey, you do a good job. There's one.
You have fun for a good cause.
Yep. There's one thing on YouTube. It's cool. It's right during Obama's last year. I think he had a couple months to go, and his press secretary had a meeting, and he was talking to all these young journalists all across the country. And he's talking to them about journalism, and then Obama comes out from out back. And he goes, oh, the president made a surprise visit. And he sat there and he talked to all these young journalists and how important their job is and how important it is to this country of information and how you do it and just all kinds of stuff that's important, the foundation of what these journalists need. And I thought, see, that's a president. He's talking about this country. Even though some of these journalists go after it, doesn't matter. You've got to have a good foundation. Do you think this guy he didn't even go to him? As a matter of fact, in 2019, Donald Trump ordered administration officials not to attend the White House Correspondents' Dinner. And that's some of the stuff. That's what I'm saying. That's where we are right now. That is where we are. I told somebody the other day, I said, I'll tell you where we're not. Remember when that person asked Bill Clinton if he wore boxers or briefs? We're not there anymore. We're not there anymore. That was a kind of and he handled it. It's not. We're not there anymore. We've got this wickedness that is out there.
A twisted wickedness that needs to be eradicated. I appreciate your call.
Yep.
1141 WNBF. What say you? Let's do it live. 607-772-1290. Bob Joseph, using only the very best of appropriated material on Binghamton Now. Bill, not Bill. We'll get to Bill in a moment. Joe and Owego, good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning. I was listening to your conversation with Mayor Cram. How many times did tax credits come up in terms of Boscov's, in terms of, everything that happens? And I'm going to continue to try to make my point that until we get a handle on how much tax credits and what their major effect is on the resources that we have governmentally to spend on services and our basic survival, let alone comfort, we really need to know. And these people that in the last 5 weeks have spent all the time wondering what other people have done and if they're a nice guy and if they take their kids to the football game, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They could have been offering we, the public, a description of what is going on. But at 7 levels of government, nobody has bothered to come forward. And I think your last caller made a point. We are an uneasy society. We're nothing like we used to be. And I think much of that is based on something which is called bliss. That's ignorance. And it's not. Ignorance is not bliss. If we knew what was going on, we could be a lot calmer than we are. And I'm going to continue my, basic interest in tax credits and how they're utilized and where they come from and who benefits and blah, 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 until we get some basic information as to who's spending what and for how long.
Here's some information about the Boscov's deal, and this goes back to last November, 11 months. So it's a $10 million improvement project for the building at the corner of Court and Water. The building is not owned by Boscov's. It's owned by the IDA. So the $10 million improvement project includes $5 million in state money. So half of the project cost is state money. That's taxpayers like you and me. Then $2.5 million is from the city and $1 million is from Broome County. So if you do the math quickly, that is $8.5 million in taxpayer money. And then Boscov's is supposed to kick in $1.5 million. So 15% of the planned improvements would be paid by Boscov's and 85% would be paid by taxpayers.
And that's 85% that could be spent somewhere else if Boscov's was making a little more money or the IDA was making a little more money. So,
yeah.
It is what it is. But to have $2,000 for your efficient stove and $7,800 for a car and $5 billion for your chips and clay and so forth and so on, we have no handle on what is being spent, but we know where funds are being refused for supporting emergency services in Sherburne or something like that. So, I think honest information could be a very calming factor in this society. And, one other thing. I'll go back to the border, and I really wish my radio reception was better because I think Benny would be more than happy to share with me the positive points of the Langford immigration management policy, which I also very interested in what the positive points of that are from your point of view. I know what mine are not. So,
all right.
Again,
hey, Joe, appreciate your call.
Thank you. Yep. Yeah, bye.
1148 WNBF. Let's go to North Carolina. Bill, you're on the air.
Hey, Bob. I just voted today. I wanted everybody to know I just voted. Yay. Get out and vote. I don't know if you guys can vote early up there in New York, but I'm getting ready to leave North Carolina now, so I voted today while I'm still here.
Yeah. Early voting doesn't start here for another week. I believe it starts a week from tomorrow.
Well, I didn't even think about early voting until the other day, and it's like, wait a minute, early voting. I heard somebody was, Dan Bongino. He was talking about early voting. It's like, yeah, I'll check into that. And like a mile from here, there was a place. Got in, got out, no lines, no waiting. And it was great.
All right.
Yeah, and actually, this is only the third time I've voted. I voted first time back in 82. And then I voted again 2016. And I couldn't vote. I didn't get there. I meant to vote in 2020, but I just couldn't get there. It's in between states. And I got to do it this time.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah, well, this election is too important to pass up. So everybody get out there and vote. Take a friend.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
1149 WNBF. This is the best station in the nation. Selena in Binghamton. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning, Bob. I love your show. Oh, you're fantastic. I use Main Street a lot, right? I was wondering if you had any information about the Masonic Temple. It's all overgrown and nothing being done about it.
I just drove by there this morning, and it still says, and I don't know who the artiste was, but apparently they had a sale on spray paint. Must be $1 per can, because they used, I think it was blue metallic spray paint, and in the left corner it said "Let it rot." And it's been up there now for months, and nobody will paint over it. I almost, when Mayor Cram was here, we ran out of time. I almost asked him if it'd be okay if I went there and got my own can of spray paint and just sprayed over, like with white or whatever, because I'm really getting tired of that thing next to the closed Dollar General store. It says "Let it rot," and I think, well, maybe they will let it rot, but you don't have to keep the slogan there for month after month.
Yeah, but I know it's so unsightly. That's a historic building. I was just wondering if you heard anything from the developers.
No, it's still for sale, so if you want to buy it.
Well, I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it too. I just don't have, let's see, how much, I think.
It's like, it makes the West Side and the First Ward look so terrible.
So I did a story about someone spray painting it, and it says "Let it rot." So that story was July 23rd. So that was about 3 months ago, and it's still there. You know, I see. Here's my problem is, and I'm looking at the picture from July 22nd. Let it rot, and my problem would be if I went and bought a $2 can of gray spray paint and painted over "Let it rot." With my luck, they'd haul me in, and I'm serious. They'd throw me in the thing for 90 days for covering up "Let it rot."
No, you can't trespass. That's just the way it
No,
works.
it's not trespassing because it's right. I wouldn't have to go inside. It's just right there in the corner next to the $10 general store.
20 years ago, I toured that building. It's a shame that historical landmark is going to hell in a handbasket.
Well, I toured the building almost exactly 8 years ago. It was October 2016.
Really?
Yeah, if you ever go to our website, you could look it up. Because I put up a gallery. I took more than 100 pictures from top to bottom. From the sub-basement where they found that guy's body all the way up to the roof. I was up on the roof, and I have afraid of heights, and I'm up there, and it was a beautiful October day, and I thought, because the guy who owned it then, he said, Yeah, I'll take you up to the roof. And so I'm up there on the roof, the thing right at the peak. And so I'm straddling the roof like it's some sort of movie. I have a picture of myself up on the roof. And
I'm going to go online. I'm going to check that.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I fly all the time, and, me and airplanes.
Oh, good times,
man. Anyway,
man.
I just wanted to know if you had any information
nothing yet.
on that one.
Nothing yet. I'm monitoring it. Maybe, who's that kid who owns Twitter? Elon Musk. Maybe
Elon Musk.
If I send him an email, maybe he'll buy the building because he has enough money. If he would, because he's worth billions. So if he would allocate $1 billion to fix the place up and turn it into, we could call it the Musk complex. I'm serious.
Yeah, but all money matters. The more money you have, the more you want. That's just how it
That's
works.
what I've been told. That's what I've heard.
Bob. Thank you for your show.
Thanks, Selena. It's can you imagine Elon Musk just at random to prove his love for the people of the Parlor City, and because he's probably listening using the free WNBF app and also paying attention because of the stuff that I tweet, he's probably saying, that's not a bad idea. I have plenty of cash. Who do I call? If I call Bob Joseph on the show here in the next 2 minutes and offer $1 billion to buy and renovate the 100-year-old Masonic Temple at 66 Main Street, would he be willing to give a speech at the dedication ceremony next July 4th? And the answer is absolutely. Morning, WNBF. You're on the air. What's your first name? Where are you calling from?
Martin, Bob. Are you sitting down?
Oddly enough, I forgot to. I was walking in here today. I'm driving to work today saying the one thing I'm going to change about the show today is I'm actually going to sit down for the whole show. And here we are with 3 minutes to go. And I've been standing. I forgot the whole thing. I mean, even though you brought it to my attention yesterday morning, I intended to be sitting down, and I just can't get out of this bad habit of standing up for 3 hours.
Well, that's all right. But, you get those veins from either genetic or environmental, like career, standing on your legs all day like that. Some people can do it their whole life and they won't get it, and other people will. But I thought about, where you can go is Penn York Medical Supplies on Main Street, the corner of Main Street and Chapin there. They'll take care of you.
Oh, it's right across from the Masonic Temple. I just drove by there.
Right.
So if I go, I could kill two skunks with one stone. I mean, figuratively, I would never kill a skunk. Loudon Wainwright III might, but not me. But I could go over with my $2 can of gray spray paint and paint over the graffiti on the Masonic Temple at 66 Main Street where it says, "Let it rot." So I would be beautifying the neighborhood, and then I can go across the street to get my my stockings. Yes. Do they come do they come in multiple sizes?
They come in colors. Yeah, they come in different sizes in black. And what they do is,
do they have blue? Do they have blue?
Well, they have a variety of colors.
All right.
Yeah, certainly. But when you walk, they squeeze. Like I was telling you yesterday, that you lose, your pumps fail. And so the fluid goes down, the edema builds up in your legs, your lower extremities. That creates pressure. The pressure breaks through the skin, which voila, creates a wound. And so, but when you walk, the pumps, the stockings squeeze, and so that pushes your circulatory system. Hippocrates says the key to life is a good circulation system, because, if it's not, it's going through your heart.
Well, that was true. Look at the Press and Sun Bulletin.
What do you mean?
Look at their circulation. They have such poor circulation, they're on their way out. You see what I'm saying? Their circulation. They used to sell nearly 100,000 papers every Sunday. Now they're down to, I think, 5,000 every Sunday. So they're experiencing the joys of poor circulation themselves.
Yeah, well, and about what Serena said, she denigrated the first ward a little bit there, but, I seen an artist rendering of that. We have a nice apartment building coming in there where Val Ballou used to be.
Oh, that's going to be a good project, yes, on Clinton Street. All right. Hey, we're out of time. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. All right. And Monday, I'll remember to sit.
It's winter. It's winter, Bob.
I know. Have a good weekend.
Okay, bye-bye.
I have to remember to sit during the program on Monday. Sit, Bobby, sit. Have a great weekend. This is Bob Joseph live on WNBF.